What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about the RA225, which is the new SMG that was just released for Warzone Season 5. I'm not going to waste any time. Let's just jump straight into the base stats. So I've tested all of this in-game. Even though there weren't private matches, I was able to queue into a live match with one of my friends and get all the damage values that way. Obviously, it makes things way slower to test, but it's still possible. So yeah, I've got all the base damages down here. So let's look at the stats real fast first. 840 rounds per minute, pretty fast RPM, ADS time around 175 milliseconds. Base range, the first damage drop-off is out at 14 meters, so that's a very long first damage range for most SMGs. Pretty standard bullet velocity. Movement speed up at 5 meters per second. ADS movement speed 2.65 meters per second. Those are very fast. We're going to use the best stat calculator on TGD here in a second to show you guys how this stacks up against the absolute fastest when you include attachments. I do have a lot of the attachment stats. Not all of them. There's just a lot to get through, and I've been working pretty much non-stop. I obviously had a typo here on the sprint to fire time. It's supposed to be 179 milliseconds, I think, not 1179, so I'll get that corrected after the video. 254 millisecond tac sprint. Hip fire is pretty close to standard for just general SMG usage. Reload time 2.5 seconds, and then default mag size 38 rounds. But let's go look at the damage profile. So it does 40 to head and neck, so you can see same damage head and neck. That's always a really big benefit because basically just gives you a big head hitbox. 26 damage to the chest, 24 stomach, 21 upper leg, 21 lower leg, and then 24 upper arm and 21 lower arm. I got some really weird results with upper arm. It seemed like I was getting two different values, but I've since done a little more research into that, and I think it may have been the optic that I was using. The 4 to 8x optic has a little bit of a bug right now with the bullet not going exactly where it should. If you follow my Twitter, you can go find the little video of me demonstrating that there. Twitter is like where I post all the time about updates for TGD, so if you're not following there, that's definitely something that you should be. In the middle drop off from 14 meters up to 21 meters, 34, 22, 20, 18, 18, 20, 18. So pretty good damage profile overall. Obviously, we're going to look at time to kill chart and things like that. And then in the last drop off, 21 meters and further, 28, 28, 18, 17, 15 to extremities, and then 17 to the upper arm. So it basically gives you the same damage as stomach shot to your upper arm in all these different damage ranges. Okay, so quickly, I want to use the best stat calculator. This is one of the premium features on TGD that lets you basically calculate every single combination of any stat you pick for all the different attachments for all the different weapons. So I've added all the SMGs in the game, and I'm going to look at the different mobility stats just so I can see how the RA, when built for maximum whatever stat I'm looking at, compares to other guns that are built to their absolute best. So I think the most important things for movement probably are tac sprint to fire, or tac sprint. So we're going to do tac sprint first. And this you will see when I sort. You can click on value to sort. You can see Marco still is the champion of movements for tac sprint, so it's the fastest up here with these attachments. And then we get the Blixen. The Blixen has a couple builds that are around 9 meters per second. Again, this needs to be updated. Small bugs across the site just because I have 10 million things to do all the time. But then you can see right here 8.9 meters per second, the RA225. So that's very close to the top dogs in terms of tac sprint. So far it's looking pretty good. It's got good fire rate, good mobility. Let's check out the let's do ADS movement. ADS firing strafing movement. How about that? Because some guns have steady, some guns don't. Again, we'll sort by highest value. This is basically going to be your guns that are the fastest while you're ADS strafing around trying to dodge bullets and still put shots on somebody while you're ADS. So right now the Sten is the champion of ADS movement with these attachments. And then the RA actually is very close. So 4.32 meters per second is the fastest in the game, which is the Sten right now. The RA225 is at 4.07, so very, very close to that. And you'll notice that the RA doesn't even have the steady perk. So steady increases your firing movement speed, or your ADS firing movement speed. So it's surprising that the RA, even without that attachment, when looking at ADS firing strafing movement speeds, is that close. So this is going to be probably one of the new best options for highly strafe speed oriented builds. And then basically I used that same best stat calculator tool to calculate out the best time to kills in the current meta. I've pretty much have TGD updated. There's a few things that still need checking, but probably like 95% updated to the new patch, Season 5 patch at this point. So you can see I've got two RAs on here. We have the RA with the rapid barrel recoil booster, 7.62 Gorenko 38 round mag hollow point, and then we have one that's just the rapid barrel with recoil booster, because you'll see when we get into the magazines that the 38 round mag with how fast this thing is shooting is really only going to be useful in solos and maybe duos. So it's not really viable for most people. I think trios and quads probably the most popular game modes. So that's why I've included that as well, because there's a 55 round mag with the default caliber ammunition. So that's what most people are going to be using probably. Then we've got the Type 100, Sten, PPSH, and Armaguerra. These are all built again with kind of their best time to kill versions from that best stat calculator. That's kind of how I use these things when I'm going in to try to find the metas each time with the data. So right off the bat, this is like a mini comparison for the SMG meta, but obviously in the SMG meta video, I'll go way more in depth. We've got the Type 100 still. This thing has always been the time to kill king with insane damage range. Followed up by the RA225 with all those attachments that increase fire rate, including the 38 round Gorenko mag. So this is the one that's really not going to be viable. This orange line, really not going to be viable for most people, because it's really just going to be a gun for solos, maybe duos, just because your damage per mag and fire rate are so, the damage per mag is so low and the fire rate's so high that it's going to be really tough to use in trios and quads. Next up, we have the green line. This is the Sten. So the Sten's been a sleeper for a long time. Has really good damage output, really low recoil, good mobility. It's just a great gun. The one big issue with it is that the magazine, when you tac sprint, just like goes right in the center of your screen. It can be really hard to see enemies. If that weren't the case, I think the Sten would be pretty much the meta right now as far as SMGs go. But I'll cover that more in depth in the SMG video. Next up, we get the Armaguerra with this 8mm Kurs, 550mm barrel, and recoil booster. This is one of my favorite builds for this thing. Has good time to kill, fantastic mobility, and huge damage per mag. That basically matches the Sten, just a tiny bit slower than the Sten, and it also has about 3 meters less damage range than the Sten, but overall pretty similar to how the Sten performs. Then the PPSH got a nice buff, so the Nambu mags no longer decrease damage, I believe, is what the patch notes said. So now it increases your fire rate. You still have big damage per mag because you have 71 bullets. You have really fast fire rate, which is very forgiving, easy to control recoil if you don't build it for hip fire. So now the PPSH is kind of sneaking into the meta a little bit too. You can see it's just slightly slower than the Sten and the Arma. And then last up, we have the RA225, which isn't bad. I mean, it's at 628 millisecond time to kill. This is just the rapid barrel and just the recoil booster, but it does have the most damage range. So I do think it's a pretty good gun. We'll see how it kind of fits in more when I go more in depth into the SMG meta, but this is just kind of an overview video. I do think it's a good gun. Do I think it's the absolute meta? No. I think it's pretty competitive, but it's probably not going to be the best choice that there is. All right, on to some recommended builds. So like I said, the RA225 has some of the best ADS movement speed in the game. And I was actually wrong in the first part. It does have steady. I just haven't put the number on TGD yet, so it didn't show up in that calculation. So if you included that, it would be absolutely probably number 2 best ADS firing movement speed in the game. So that's pretty good. And overall, it has decent time to kill and good range. So it's an okay choice. The recoil is not great though. So I still think things like the Arma, the Marco, a few of these other like lower recoil options, maybe the PPSH even now, are going to sneak in ahead of this. But it's still reasonably competitive. So if you want to try it out, so this would be the full strafe speed build, ADS strafe speed. So we got the recoil booster and rapid barrel. Those just give it the best time to kill. There is a barrel that changes the damage values, so I can show you guys that real quick. We'll just go back to the home page and then add the RA225. And then if we look at this barrel, it's the surge barrel. You can see basically added a bunch of headshot damage in the first range, but reduced the next shot, body shot, anywhere on the body. It reduced slightly in the first range, same in the second range, same in the third range. So it ends up just not really being worth it. It doesn't affect those time to kills with the shot location percentages that I have on there as much as just the big, I believe, 19% increase in fire rate that the rapid barrel gives you. It's just not really worth even considering the surge barrel right now over the rapid barrel. But back into the recommended loadouts. We've got the Urban Tac stock. That is the ADS strafe stock. SG98 compact. You can use this or the it's probably the last one that I haven't unlocked yet, but I think it's the SMLE grip. That also helps with your strafe speed, but that one will hurt your recoil as well. Again, there's only 3 mags. 2 of them have 38 rounds, so those are kind of not viable for trios and quads. So 9mm 55 round drum, that's the default caliber mag. The recoil is not great, but the recoil is not great on any of these. Even with the 7.62 Grenko, it doesn't seem to make that much difference. It says it helps recoil, but it doesn't seem to make that much difference. Still the better choice for solos and duos, but for trios and quads, definitely 55 round drum. Grooved grip, just because we want some help with that horizontal recoil, as well as ADS movement speed, basically just trying to maximize ADS movement speed across the board here. Steady perk, again, that is just firing ADS firing movement speed, so only when you're pulling the trigger you start to move a little bit faster. Doesn't help that much, but does a little bit. And then the quick perk, so this would be the maximum strafe build. It's going to be pretty good. I think the Arma strafe builds are going to be a little bit better. The Sten strafe builds might be a little bit better, but this one is close and it is competitive. Next up, we're going to look at this. So it also has fantastic mobility, just regular movement speed, tac sprint speed, things like that. This would be the absolute maximum movement speed build. Again, recoil booster, rapid barrel just for good TTK. Moravec stock. There's a couple stocks that increase movement speed, the Valentina and the Moravec. This one just seems to be more of an SMG type attachment to me. It helps with your hip fire and your sprint to fire speed, which is really important when you're tac sprinting. It does hurt your ADS and your recoil. But overall, it just seemed like the best choice for movement speed. Mark 6 skeletal for movement speed. Again, the 7.62 Grenko 38 round mag does help with movement speed a little bit. So if you're going for absolute maximum mobility, that would be what you would choose. I've talked about this a bunch, but I'm a big fan of subsonic. I love staying off the minimap. Obviously, you could throw on hollow point if you wanted to potentially have a little bit better limb damage and maybe some slightly better TTKs in certain situations. But I just prefer subsonic. Taped grip for maximum movement speed again. It also has a bunch of other good SMG properties, so it does weapon swap quickness, so you might not need to use amped as a perk. Also helps with sprint to fire time, which again is super important for a movement speed build because you're going to be tac sprinting everywhere. You could use steady, you could use momentum. I don't even know if momentum works, to be honest. I've never had the time to test that. But steady for sure does, so if you wanted a little bit better firing movement speed while you're ADS, you'd go with that. But because it's only a 38 round mag, I think it's worth throwing on sleight of hand just so you can reload a little bit faster. But that's personal preference there. And then obviously quick for the perk. So this would just be the absolute maximum movement speed version of the RA225. And then last up, I want to show basically how I would probably run it if I was going to use this. So it has pretty bad recoil, so I think kind of giving it good strafe speed and then also trying to help with that recoil a little bit is probably the ideal way to use this gun, for me at least. So recoil booster, rapid barrel for TTK, slate reflector, and then urban tac for that ADS movement speed. It also gives a bunch of other good perks, but overall we're pretty much just picking it for the ADS movement speed. Hand stop to help with that recoil a little bit, and it only hurts hip fire. I'm not going to be hip firing this gun, so it's not a big deal. That's why I really like hand stop, is it just doesn't have very many cons. 55 round drum and subsonic, same reasons as before. Grooved grip, this helps with recoil a little bit again, horizontal recoil, but also really helps with that ADS movement speed. So this is going to have really good ADS movement speed as well as decent recoil. For perk, I actually think tight grip is really good for this because after those first few shots, this is going to control that recoil really well for you. And like I said, the recoil is kind of the thing that holds this back a little bit. The recoil and the time to kills combined kind of just really, I don't think it's going to be too competitive with something like an Arma if it's built correctly. But it's not like super far off. So tight grips just to help with that recoil, make it a little easier to control, and then quick as always. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to drop a like and a comment to help me out with the algorithm. And if you want to see more of my YouTube content, be sure to subscribe and hit the little bell icon to be notified. That's it for the RA225 summary. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's going to be the absolute meta, but I do think it sneaks up on it. It's a pretty good gun, pretty close. And we'll see how they tweak it with future updates. But for now, things like the Arma, the Sten, even the PPSH could potentially be a little bit better options. But hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.